They called it worthless. It was the word everyone used when they talked about my lake house worthless filful apart a mistakia burden but standing there on the wooden porch with the evening sun stretching across the water. I never saw it that way. Me name is Emily, and for most of my life that little lake house was the only place where I felt safe. Me grandfather built it with his own hands long before I was born. Every summer my family gathered. Their birthdays were celebrated, their stories were told, their dreams were shared there. When life became difficult, the lake house became my escape. Each place carried memories that no amount of money could ever replace. But memories do not impress people who only care about profit, especially people who hide their true intentions behind friendly smiles. At the time, I believed my life was finally settling down. He had a successful career, a comfortable home, and a husband I trusted with everything. Daniel always acted supportive whenever I talked about the lake house. He would smile polite to listenites. He joked about how much work it needed. Sometimes he asked why I refused to sell. I thought he was simply curious. He never imagined he was studying it, watching it, waiting. The first sign came after my grandfather passed away. The loss shattered me. He was the one person who always believed in me. The reading of his will, I learned the lake house belonged entirely to me. No shared ownership, no conditions, no complications. As Mene remembered Daniel squeezing my hand that day. His voice sounded warm. You finally got what you wanted. He smiled through my tears. He thought he was happy. For maybe looking back now, I realized something changed in his eyes that day. Something I failed to recognize. Weeks turned into months. Strange conversations began appearing around. My friends asking if I planned to sell, neighbors mentioning developers, real estate agents, somehow getting my phone number. It felt odd, but I dismissed it. Then one evening I overheard a conversation that changed everything. Daniel was on the phone in his office's door with slightly up. He heard my lake house mention Ned, and I heard numbers, huge numbers, more money than I could imagine. My heart started racing when I stepped closer. His voice dropped at moment he noticed me. He ended the call. His smile returned immediately. To quick clip it was the moment the first crack appeared in the life I thought I had built, and I had no idea that crack was about to become a complete collapse. Because what I didn't know that day was that my so-called worthless lake house was hiding a secret. Powerful people would do almost anything to control asterisk. The following months became a nightmare. Daniel grew to stand cold. Calicalit warmth that once filled our marriage slowly disappeared. Very conversation somehow returned to the lake house. You should sell it. You never use it enough. Think about our future. Think about the money. At first I resisted politely, then firmly. Eventually our discussions became arguments. Harder he pushed, the more suspicious I became. Only afternoon I drove to the lake house alone. He needed space, he needed answers. Moment I arrived, I noticed something unusual. Several expensive vehicles were parked near land surrounding the property. Men in suits were studying maps, measuring distances, taking photographs. And they saw me. They suddenly became uncomfortable. One of them approached with a forced smile. Beautiful property you have here. I nodded, trying to understand why strangers seemed more interested in my inheritance than I was. That night I began researching. What I discovered left me speechless. A massive luxury development project was quietly being planned around the lake. A resort spread Marinus exclusive communities. Billions of dollars were potentially involved, and right in the middle of those plans sat my supposedly worthless lake house. Suddenly everything made sense. A phone calls, pressure of these strange visitors, endless offers. Me property was the missing piece. Without it their plans became far more complicated. The betrayal ran deeper than I imagined. A few weeks later I discovered emails on Daniel's laptop. He was not searching for them. They simply appeared while I was helping him print documents, and message froze me completely. Me wife still refuses to sell, but I am working on it. The Reagent's ownership changes hands. The project can move forward. Ownership changes hands. Those words echoed in my mind. My husband was not protecting our future. It was working against me for money, for influence, for people I had never met. He confronted him that evening. Truth exploded out of him. Gone was the caring husband I thought I knew. Gone was the gentle voice. What remained was someone consumed by greed. Accused me of being selfish, stubborn, and claimed I was standing in the way of progress, standing in the way of fortune, standing in the way of opportunity. Spit. All I heard was betrayal. Years of trust shattered. In many Tessie left that night. The next morning liars began contacting me. Then came legal threats and attempts to challenge ownership, and pressure from powerful investors. Everything happened so quickly that I struggled to breathe. The people who had ignored me for years suddenly treated me like an obstacle, a problem to eliminate. For a while fear controlled me. I cried constantly, barely slept. He questioned my own strength, but something changed inside me. It was my grandfather's memory, maybe it was the realization that nobody was coming to save me. Either way, I stopped being afraid. If they wanted a fight, they would get on, and unlike them, I had something far stronger than Monet had, the truth. The turning point arrived when an elderly surveyor contacted me privately. I had worked around the lake for decades, told me there was something investors were desperately hiding, something connected directly to my property. We uncovered documents that had been buried for years, historical records, and written reports and agreements. Truth was astonishing me. Lake House sat on the only legally protected access point to a critical section of the lake. Without my approval, many parts of the billion-dollar project could never be completed as originally planned. Investors knew it, Daniel knew it, everyone knew it except method. Knowledge changed everything. For months they had treated me as powerless. Now the balance shifted. Me legal team carefully assembled evidence. Every every communication, every attempt to manipulate ownership, every hidden agreement. When the case finally reached public attention, the story spread rapidly. Suddenly reporters were asking questions, regulators became interested, investors started examining contracts, people who once acted untouchable became nervous. Then came the moment I will never forget. Several executives withdrew from the project, partnerships collapsed, invests disappeared. Same people who had pressured me suddenly wanted negotiations, not because they respected me, because they needed me. For the first time I saw genuine fear in their eyes. For Daniel's role became impossible to deny. Marriage and partnerships he hoped would make him wealthy abandoned him. Promises he chased disappeared almost overnight. In the end, he lost far more than money, lost trust, reputation, the future we once planned together. Meanwhile, I kept the lake house, not because of its value and it because of victory, but because it represented something deeper. It represented standing firm when powerful people expected surrender. Today, the first still sit on that same porch. Water remains calm, sunsets remain beautiful, and sometimes I think about how close I came to losing everything. That looked like an ordinary old house turned out to reveal the true character of everyone around me. People who loved me stayed, people driven by greed exposed themselves, and perhaps that was the greatest gift hidden within those walls. Life taught me something important through all that pain. Never allow others to define the value of what matters to you, because the things they call worthless often hold the greatest worth of Ellen. Sometimes the greatest revenge is not destruction, it is simply refusing to let betrayal change who you are. It is how I found peace. It is how I reclaimed my life, and that is why the lake house still stands today.